Okay, the time for talk is almost over. We are inching ever so closer to the Rumble, the Rock Fight, the Battle Royale at the Razor, Sunday at 3 in the P, when the ferocious, nasty, aggressive, ridiculous Houston Texans and that gnarly all-time defense come to Foxboro to take on the wonderkin Drake Maye, Mike Vrabel, and the feel-good upstart, veritably almost unbeatable New England Patriots. Who's got the upper hand? How's it going to go down? And will a little magical snow in the forecast change our perception and prognostication on this awesome edition that's going to be part preview and behind enemy lines? Mego and I are going to kick things off, and then we welcome in from our sister station, 610 Sports Radio in Houston, Seth Payne of Payne and Pendergast. Fitzy, Mego, Seth, bringing the pain. It's all coming up on Six Rings and Football Things. Who wants a little theme music?
Hey, whatever it takes, man. It's all about winning, all right? Winning on 3. 1, 2, 3, win!
Celebrating the heroes of Foxboro's past.
And with a good block. Look at Grover. Coming all the way. Watch the block of number 73, John Hanna.
The champions of the dynastic era.
Adam Vinatieri booms a 48-yard field goal, and the Patriots are Super Bowl champions.
The Patriots of tomorrow.
We're going to remove entitlement from our football team. We're going to earn the right to be here every single day.
And the fans whose faith never wavers. This is Six Rings and Football Things.
Yeah, we're just talking about, there's 24 teams at home right now. There's 8 of us, practicing and still working. And it's, he mentioned us today before practice, take a look, raise your hand who was still practicing this time last year. And I think, Milton was the only one. So it was pretty, just eye-opening to see, there's eight teams left, and it's a chance, an opportunity that we have to, play a home football game and home playoff game that matters at at times when it matters most. So just kind of reflect on that and realize kind of opportunity we have, and at the same time, how much work we've done to get here and enjoy it, and at the same time, he just reminded us to take advantage of it and know that we got a chance.
Man, I got to tell you, this guy and his perspective, he may only be all of 23 years old, not even old enough to rent a car on his own should he go on a vacation with Lady Bakesmith. But Drake Maye seems to just completely get it. But he gets it behind the microphone, and obviously he gets it in the film room, and he gets it on the football field. But is he going to get it enough? Will all of his experience and all of his intuition lead up to a performance worthy of defeating maybe not just only the best defense in the NFL this year, but one of the best defenses the NFL has seen perhaps this decade? And who knows? That's part of this crazy, topsy-turvy, mixed-up, tumble-dry season. So let's get things going here on Six Rings and Football. Thanks to everyone who's listening via your choice of podcast applications. And if you're watching live as we record on the WEEI and Fitzy GFY socials, we've got Mego, as you can see right there, a nice, fresh, crisp shirt. She was just doing a little television, and then she jumped onto the set of Severance to join.
Yes, once again, it's like every time I do this pod, Fitzy, where in the world is Megan Ottolini?
No, seriously. We should have prizes for people that can guess where Mego is. Real quick, we're going to be joined in just a couple of moments here by Seth Payne from Sports Radio 610 in Houston. But Mego, I want to just sort of get a feel, first and foremost, from you as to how you think this matchup looks now. Obviously, in comes this awesome defense. Patriots played well enough to just basically muzzle and silence the Chargers last Sunday night, which I think was part due to the fact that the Chargers just were too banged up to compete with the Patriots, but also Drake made mistakes, grew up in the second half, had an excellent best quarterback rating, best passer rating under pressure of all 12 quarterbacks wildcard weekend. And the Patriots defense was up to the task. But could the growing confidence in Patriots Nation be a little too high considering the task at hand?
Well, so I'm interested in the growing confidence. I'm guessing that you're hearing that from callers, from texters, from everybody listening to EEI Afternoons. I do feel at a very dumb level, like if we're going to really dumb this down, get really dumb, that this game,
you're talking my game. If we're going to dumb it down, you're speaking to the king of the dum-dums.
You certainly have the better quarterback, and so often you feel like, okay, that's what it comes down to in the NFL, right? You may have the better coach too, although I love a lot of what DeMeco Ryans does, but I think that in this game, both sides of the ball for you have to play so well, whereas with the Texans, they just have to have their offense not puke on themselves because they puked on themselves a little bit last week, but they played a Steelers team that even though they beat you in the regular season was so less good, like so much less talented and halfway checked out partway through the game that the defense just took care of business and the offense was able to make all those mistakes. I feel that if their defense performs and their offense just at least keeps it on the level,
Mhm.
then it's just so much easier for them because of how strong that defense is.
Yeah, I don't think I have seen a more consistent, dynamic pass rush and we all than the Texans present. And we all keep talking about Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. And I was watching the game on Monday night, and yeah, CJ Stroud had all sorts of issues. We'll get to the Texans offense in a minute, and then hyper focus on it with Seth Payne in a couple minutes. But Danielle Hunter um, literally makes Myles Garrett look like a chips and salsa eating slob stoner on his buddy's sofa. Like these guys are not like they're like AI generated rush bots that were sent from the future in a blue ball of lightning to destroy the Patriots or any offensive line in front of them. But it's not just them. It's every level of this defense. Pollock and Petrie and Stingley and Autry and Rankins and every single one of them feeds off of the intense energy that DeMeco Ryans is able to funnel into them, just the same way that the Patriots are able to funnel off of like the intelligence, the toughness, the chippiness, and the emotional well-being of Mike Vrabel. Like it's just going to be such an awesome matchup. But even if you think you're ready, even if you're like, well, we got Josh McDaniels, no one's better at figuring out a way to get rid of the ball as quick as possible than Josh McDaniels. Like I feel like this is sort of you don't know what it feels like to get punched in the mouth until you get punched in the mouth type of game.
It reminded me, and I think you will appreciate this when you start talking about those two edge rushers, of the quote from The Social Network with the Winklevi twins, where one of them says,
Winklevi.
one of them
They,
says,
they stole the Facebook from us.
one of them says, I'm 6'5", I'm 220 pounds, and there's two of me. And you're like, yeah, that is what that pass rush is. And what I think is maybe not getting enough attention, and it's on my mind because I wrote about it a little bit for tomorrow for WEI.com, is that it's not just the pass rush. They're a bitch in coverage too. They're secondary. You've got Derek
Top 5 cornerback.
Stingley
Stingley's a top 5 cornerback, period. The end. That's no
over the
notes.
last 2 seasons. You've got Lassiter on the other side. He has even more passes broken up than Stingley does.
Because no one wants to throw at Stingley.
Right, Stingley is 15, Lassiter is 18, so it was interesting talking to Kayshon Boutte at his locker this week, and he said outright, "I really like the matchup." And he named Derek Stingley Jr. and said, I feel really good. Those are physical corners, but I'm physical too. And I'm paraphrasing here. And I was thinking like, wow, he's like really putting that out on Front Street. Like he feels good about it. Well, my husband, who's a Patriots writer, reminded me that he burned Stingley for like a 40-yard go ball.
His
last
first,
year
actually,
when they
Drake.
saw each other.
Yeah, that's a great call, Mego. 2 things on that. Number one, nailed it. Drake Maye's first touchdown pass in the NFL came in his first start, Game 6 of the 2024 season, during the Gerard Mayo era. It was a go ball down the right sideline, a beautifully dropped 50-yard dime in the bucket.
That's it.
Past Stingley, which was incredible. And Drake Maye played well in that game, and it does bear looking at because CJ Stroud is not going up against that version of the Patriots defense by any stretch. They also don't have Joe Mixon, who went for 13 and a $102 and a touchdown and had his way. At the same time, Drake's going to get an even better version of that Texans defense, but with more allies. And number 2, I actually even have a little Kayshon Boutte audio fresh from the locker room.
What are the toughest defenses that you've personally had to prepare for? I wouldn't say one of the toughest. At the end of the day, we know we're going to get man coverage. You got to beat it. It's that simple.
Wow, Kayshon Boutte. It's not one of the toughest. You're just going to get man coverage. You got to beat it, which is exactly why I'm going to hammer the hell out of the Drake Maye rushing prop this weekend.
So I think one thing that's important to note there is the context of that question was toughest that you've ever seen, not like
Yeah.
toughest you've seen this season, toughest you've ever seen. And so I think that's what he was saying. Like, it's not like it's the toughest defense he's seen as a football player in his whole life.
Yeah.
Even though it possibly actually could be when they're out there on Sunday. I think what's really interesting is that as good as incredibly strong as this defense is, they don't do anything that when you talk to the guys in the locker room and they've been watching film on them, they don't do anything that's surprising or
Mhm.
putting in a bunch of stunts and twists, and they're not going to confuse you the way that maybe you heard Robert Spillane talking about after the game on Sunday, saying
Yeah.
that offensive players from the Chargers were coming up and saying like, we had no idea what you guys were doing out there.
And
That's not the
Zach Kerr
case.
is such a legend. And then Greg
Yeah.
Cosell from NFL Films pushed back and was like, I watched the film. I kind of didn't see what everyone else is making so
Well,
much
you
hype
tell
about.
him that he wasn't there, okay?
Yeah, okay. All right. I'll drive to Jersey and I'll let him know.
Robert Spillane said his piece. He was there. But all that to say, like, it's not about how they draw it up. It's just that the
Right.
execution with those, no disrespect to the play calling over there, but that defense, the individual pieces are so freaking good that it's like,
Mhm.
well, you know what they're gonna do. Are you gonna be able to handle it?
Right. I mean, the Patriots may have to play a game where the Texans think they're doing A, but there's a little sleight of hand and it could be B or maybe even possibly C. I'm sure that C does not involve a double reverse option pass from Efton Chisholm to Drake Maye. But then again, hey, you never know. Josh and his bag of tricks.
Oh, Fitzy, I had such a faux pas in the locker room this week. I can't even tell you. Like, I
Please.
don't even want to mention it.
But you just mentioned it. How can you
I
not
know.
mention it to the hundreds of people watching live and everyone
There's
listening?
so many guys in that locker room who are former QBs. So I was like, joking around with some people about like, hey, when do you get to throw a pass in the game? When do you get to? Well, contrary to when we are in our draft minds
Mhm.
in April and March and looking over guys' entire bios, I may have forgotten that one Kyle Williams was a great quarterback in high school. And so I
Mhm.
asked him, like, "Oh, have you ever played quarterback?" And he was like, "Have I ever played quarterback?" I was like, "Whoa, sorry." Do you know
Sorry, Mr.
how?
Edelman.
Do you know how hard it is to get Kyle Williams to be offended by you? I
I
mean,
know.
that man is an
Remember
angel.
we called him in the offseason the timeline king because everything that kept showing up was so positive, and he's such an angel and a darling, and he still continues to be. Look, I'm like I said, I think Drake's going to have to use his legs a lot, and it's going to be a battle for every inch, for every point. I think they should basically just tell the referees first to 17 wins, and if we can even get that high, that's great. Patriots defense played great last Sunday. I expect them to perhaps open a little more vanilla and then try to get more exotic as the game goes, because CJ Stroud did have a hard time in the cold and against the Steelers pass rush. But I know you can fill the oceans blue with what we necessarily don't know about the Houston Texans offense and exactly how they view the Patriots and what that game plan could be. So that's exactly why on this Patriots preview and behind enemy lines edition of Six Rings and Football Things, we bring in all the way from H-Town. He's chugging his scissor. He's mad about the fact that the last Super Bowl that was won in that town was a 28-3 comeback for the obnoxious Tom Brady, the GOAT. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, from the Payne and Pendergast show on 610 Sports Radio in Houston, the one and only Mr. Seth Bring the Pain on the program. What's up, Seth?
Hey, I'm happy to be here. I was excited because when I jumped on, Megan was talking about how we're gonna keep it stupid and dumb. I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Just always
Good to
know,
go.
know there's a very low bar set on this program or
Good.
anything that I'm involved in. So please, by all means, let your freak flag fly.
Let me tell you guys one thing off the bat. I am as sick of the strength of schedule discussions as anybody in New England is, and yet I feel like it keeps getting thrown in my face, and I can't avoid it or ignore it. And it's the reality of the situation. I think that the Patriots are a really good football team. How good are they? This is what the playoffs are for. And that's a great thing. We don't have to have a debate about the college football playoff strength of schedule and quality losses or anything.
Yeah, there's no Bowling Green or there's no Tulane involved in the process.
Exactly.
And look,
I can't get on social media without getting into that discussion. and I succumb to it, and I feel dirty afterwards.
Well, that's why we have filters.
A brothel or something.
That's why. Oh my God, the ball talk brothel. It's ridiculous. Honestly, I feel like I need so many Silkwood showers during the course of an NFL season, let alone the postseason, as well. And it's funny you say that, because if the Patriots are to try to get to the promised land, and go to Santa Clara, win a Super Bowl, et cetera, and cost Mr. Kraft millions, and having to demolition one end zone that has 6 banners and add a 7th. Oh, the first world football problems. They're going to basically have to go through defenses 1 through 4, because in all likelihood, the Seahawks could very well make it, but we'll worry about the NFC challenger to the Super Bowl throne in a minute. But you're going to have to go through the Chargers, like the Texans, and considering the fact that the 3 of us may have to line up at receiver for the Bills Saturday in Denver, probably have to go through the Broncos as well. So it's a real test for the Patriots to have to prove they're not fool's gold. And I think that biggest test is Sunday at 3:00 against the Texans.
That's you know what? I'm glad you framed it that way. I hadn't thought about it that way. So it is almost it's the perfect end of this season.
It's a gauntlet.
There's been, because I'm in the same boat, and I'm sorry if it's like, I try to be as objective as possible about it. And I want to, I go into every game trying to convince myself to be terrified of the opponent. And it's hard to just look at the Patriots and look at what they've done this year without acknowledging or recognizing, at least, all right, they haven't had as much of a challenge as everybody else, but they've done, like you would say with a college football team, they've done everything that they need to do, and it's not their fault, it's their schedule. So I guess, from the Patriots perspective, it's a daunting task, but they passed the first one, and they made Herbert look like Justin Herbert, making CJ Stroud in this offense look like this is a concern in Houston. We don't know what this offense is. We know that the offensive line they've elevated themselves with the help of Nick Caley and Cole Popovich. Thank you very much. To be an average offensive line, which is what I and a lot of other people at the beginning of the season were saying. Yeah, they got rid of their 3 other starters from last year, replaced them with a bunch of guys that nobody was all that excited about. But they've just, by honestly Cole Popovich being, I think, a really good offensive line coach, they've gotten to where they're technically sound, they're fundamentally sound, they're not making all these mental errors and technique errors that they did last year, and they're okay. So they're not usually hurting themselves before they even have a chance to do anything good. Obviously, the game in Pittsburgh was concerning from the CJ Stroud standpoint, and that's the big question. On the road again with noise, and I hear that it's a lot louder in Foxboro these days than it was when everybody was bored with championships. So that's the big concern for me.
So, Seth, one thing, I think there's 2 things to the strength of schedule conversation that compound it and make it more compelling, even for people like me who are here locally, but I'm just looking at it from an unbiased perspective and saying, hey, first of all, it's just we haven't seen a lot of these guys do it before. It's the first season with Mike Vrabel as the head coach here. It's the second season with Drake Maye, and the first time that he's made it to the playoffs. So a lot of it is, we just don't have that much information to go off of, not to mention all the free agents that they brought in, what a new team it is overall. But on top of that, there is this trend so far this year that a lot of stuff is breaking the Patriots' way. And I say that because it brings us to the situation with Nico Collins. Yeah. And I'm wondering if, assuming Nico Collins is not able to go on Sunday, that's just the assumption I'm going off of by the concussion protocol, and correct me if you're hearing differently, how backbreaking is that for the offense over there?
No, it really is. And it's funny that I didn't even mention Nico in my opening statement. Was a bit, I think I'm a little bit in denial about it. They've done all right with Nico off the field, and CJ had a pretty good performance in a game without him.
Best passing stats of the year. I'm sorry to interrupt, Seth. Yeah. 318 and 2 touchdowns. So his best game this year was sans Nico.
Yeah, and it was as Jaden Higgins, the rookie second rounder, kind of stepped up, and CJ started to trust Jaden Higgins.
I loved Higgins in the draft.
Same. And I love Noel. I think Noel has just scratched the surface of his talent.
No, and then Christian Kirk, after having about 200 or so pass receiving yards in the entire season last week, goes off and reels off $167. That was a surprise. There were a few things last week that were a surprise, and obviously Nico Collins was on the field. But the Texans' run game clicking like they did, that was the best we've seen them all season long. That was a genuine surprise versus that Steelers front that I was nervous about because, look, they play a 3-4. They play old school 3-4, you know, 2 head-up defensive ends and a head-up nose tackle like the Patriots will at times, especially with the nose tackle. The fact that they were able to mount that effort in the run game, I was honestly surprised by it. I don't know if they can replicate it again this week, but that would be a big key to victory. Without Nico, then everything else that the Texans have struggled with at times this year becomes a lot more complicated just because, man, when teams want to play man versus the Texans, great. That's awesome because CJ can dial up his matchups. When they play zone and when they really help out on Nico, and then especially when teams disguise the blitz. And I know the Patriots don't blitz a lot, but they were pretty damn good at it last week. That's where the road environment, I don't think, has nearly as much to do with the cold as it does just the pre-snap operation, identifying the mic, setting the pass protection, all those things. The Texans have had struggles with that, especially if you go through stretches of the Kansas City game, stretches of the Chargers game on the road where they really took it to them. And then they recovered and they were able to do enough in the fourth quarter to just possess the football, get first downs, not necessarily anything miraculous. CJ's made some great plays on third down in the fourth quarter, but that's by and large, that's the really big concern, especially versus, I heard you guys talking about the ability of Vrabel and Josh McDaniels to dial up something special for the playoffs. That's very much on my mind. And I think Josh McDaniels' ability to do that, especially versus the Texans offense, Texans defense.
You guys have a McDaniels as well. And I know that's still like a Foxboro South with Caserio, with McDaniels and all your offense, Jake Andrews and Trent Brown and Sadie So and all these other Patriots. I'm sorry, you got a point?
No. I'm glad you brought up the Ben McDaniel. I forget about us. So there's two things I forget about. One, because I've had so many concussions myself. Nico Collins concussion. But two, the like how many ties there are. And every time I talk to somebody in New England, they'll bring up somebody. I'm like, oh yeah. Caserio spent some time up there, didn't he? Yeah. But Ben McDaniels, we talked about him this morning because we're talking about Stephon Diggs, and you know, I think probably as it was for you guys. So many people here were kind of surprised, like, wow, Stephon Diggs actually seems to be a really good leader in the locker room. Like, boy, he's really working with the young guys.
Stroud gave him a love fest. I didn't have time to grab the clip and share it in the pod, but like Stroud talked about him as like, he's a brother to me. I didn't just love playing with him then. He's still one of my best friends and my favorite people. It's unbelievable how the same guy that can get a knock for being, you know, like a sideline spectacle and a locker room cancer, and the guy that they famously said in Minnesota, don't let him date your sister, can also be the guy that riles everyone up and makes them want to just run off the boat and charge into fire without care. Like, he has taken the mantle from Devin McCourty of being the pregame speech guy. He is the guy that they all gravitate towards and they get a yes and a no and thank you, sir, in the locker room. He's been, I'd say, of the $23 million he's earned this year, you know, just for the wave it off and the Cardi B and everything else and the locker room and sideline fire, that's where he's really earned his money. And it's so funny that this reputation has dogged him of like, oh, well, if Stephon Diggs was so great in Houston, how come they didn't re-sign him after he, got hurt halfway through the season? He had 46 catches, 500 yards, couple touchdowns.
Oh yeah, it was a big drop off after he got injured. You know, you can see the drop in CJ's stats like across the board when he didn't have that easy option, when there was pressure, and there was a lot of pressure last year. You know, CJ, some of his best throws he made last year were 5 and 10 yard receptions to Stephon Diggs under pressure. But the Ben McDaniels part of it was, we were talking about, hey, looking back on that deal the Patriots gave him because it seemed awful pricey at the time. Was that a good deal? And at the time, I thought it was a good deal, you know, with the big asterisk that he had to come back from his ACL. But just because of where the Texans were with their wide receivers, they had young wide receivers. They would eventually draft a couple more. The Patriots needed a veteran presence and a wide receiver in that room. And it makes sense, especially with there's not necessarily a boatload of guaranteed money. I thought it was a smart move, and it's obviously panned out. But I'm a little bit mad at Ben McDaniels for, I'm guessing at some point, Josh called him up and said, "Hey Ben, how's Stephon Diggs?" And he probably told him the truth that he was awesome in the locker room and he was a good leader.
He should have told him like, oh, what a jerk. Yeah. Oh my God. One thing you don't want to do is offer him a 3-year, $69 million deal. Yeah. You definitely don't want to do that. And then have you guys sign it. It's just funny how that all flew in the face of what we had heard versus now what the team has known. And Mego, before I throw it back to you, I just wanted to ask real quick, the CJ Stroud factor, as far as his inconsistency. 1 minute he throws a dime on a tether line, makes a great read, and uses his hyper athletic ability to make plays only a handful of other quarterbacks make. The next minute, he's dropping an icy cold ball in the freezing temps of Pittsburgh, or just makes a throw that's sort of like, oh my God, what the heck is the guy thinking doing that? You know, is that a predominant fear for Texans fans, that 1 minute CJ is going to get it for you, and the next minute CJ is going to give it to them?
It's at least for me, I think amongst fans, it's probably going to vary pretty vastly. There's like, as it is with any quarterback, there's diehard true believers, and then there's the constant skeptics. This year for him, the big surprise about that Steelers game was that CJ had done a great job this year of maturing as a quarterback and really understanding, all right, we're going to have our limitations on offense. This offense is new to everybody, and they're trying to run. Caley's taken a lot more from Josh McDaniels than he is from Sean McVay. It's a lot of pre-snap responsibility on the quarterback. They want to get the protection right, and they've solidified things in a lot of ways. The last 3 regular season games, CJ didn't take a sack, but at times it's been a combination of things. Early on in the season, there were a lot of miscommunications where I think receivers just weren't in the right places, not in exactly the right places. So CJ would have some throws that look inaccurate, but then I talked to my wide receiver friends and everything, and they explained to me why I'm a dumb defensive lineman and and why the timing's just a little bit off. And as Jaden Higgins got better, that got better. But he's gotten really good at playing like a veteran quarterback. And to use Tom Brady's old saying, it's not about the plays you make, it's about the mistakes you don't make. Mm-hmm. Throughout the regular season, he was doing a good job of living out the cliches. On 1st and 10, he's taking the first read, throwing it. It's open, it's there. I'm not going to sit and wait for Nico Collins to get open downfield. If something wasn't there, he's throwing the ball away. He wasn't trying to extend plays and run out the back of the pocket and make sacks even worse than they were. He did a lot of the mature quarterback stuff that all of them struggle with in their first 3 years, as they learn when discretion is the better part of valor. He was doing all of that, and he was making a lot of progress at it. And then in the fourth quarter, there were a lot of times where, even though it wasn't a great offensive effort, he just came up clutch big time with some big third down conversions. And that's why last week was so weird, because it looked like, in a lot of ways, all of that had evaporated. Like, he just all of a sudden looked like he was pressing. It looked like he didn't realize, hey, I've got this defense on the other side of us, and we don't have to do too much. We just have to do our jobs. And, because, do your job. We still a lot of New England stuff because of our job. So
that sounds familiar. Yeah.
So we can't trade. We keep trying to trademark stuff, and it's already taken. But like, he's done a good job at that. And I don't know what happened last week. That was really a different version of CJ Stroud than we've really seen in almost the entire season.
What I think scares me the most about this, from the Patriots' perspective, this matchup, is that there have been a number of games where, if you just look at the stat line, you go, wow, Drake's ball security has been really good. And obviously his accuracy has improved leaps and bounds since last year. But if you go back and watch the tape, there's a lot of these occasions where you go, oh, that could have been like a 3 interception game.
Yeah.
If somebody had wide receiver hands instead of, no offense, cornerback hands, and you guys have a couple cornerbacks who seem to have wide receiver hands.
Yeah.
And so honestly, I think that's what scares me, is that even something like a tipped pass, which is so chaotic, or a forced fumble, your defense just really generates takeaways. And to me, I think that
29 of them.
That might be the most straightforward path to victory for the Texans, because the Patriots have not had a ton of situations where they've had to deal with that. And when they have, like in the Steelers game, when the Steelers came in to muck it up in week 3, they really paid for it.
And that's I agree with you 100%. And that's the one thing about riding a defense to a championship that's difficult, though, is that, man, it's hard to have 4 games in a row where you take the ball away a whole bunch. And that at some point you run up against quarterbacks like Drake Maye who don't, maybe it's been a little bit of luck, but like he hasn't turned the ball over. And then on down the line, I think the biggest thing about this defense is, I mean, they're so much fun to watch if you're not playing against them. And I, like, as a player, I'm jealous of how they play as a unit. I've never seen a team or a defense that has as many stud players who are also unselfish players. So what you get is, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. I'd say both those guys could have had 3 or 4 more sacks apiece this year if they were more selfish. But when they get to the level of the quarterback, they turn it into a bull rush. Like, they're not trying to win on the edge at all costs and get their sack and get their bag and all that. And likewise on the defensive backfield, Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter are just wired different. And I know I'm sounding like an extreme homer here, but I've been I'm a
you played for the team. It's okay. I got
That's
you.
It. No, but I try to be objective. But it's honestly, I get jealous that I want to play on that team. Because they're just,
oh my God. Could you imagine if you've got Autry and Rankins and Anderson and the Terminator next to you along that line? My God, you had 17 and a half career sacks. You'd have 17 and a half sacks in a season.
No. I'm all about the run, baby. I don't exactly. Well, Tommy Togiai would be who I would hopefully try to. Megan, you made a great point about earlier before I came on about the talent of the defense and how they are able to keep it relatively simple partly because they have really talented players at those 4 pillar positions, the 2 defensive ends and the 2 corners. But I think the other part of it is, and I think, this is where there's so many similarities between these 2 teams just because Vrabel's a different type of personality than DeMeco Ryans, but I think they're both wired the same way in the way they coach their players and how
similar yet different.
Yeah. I could go off on a whole other tangent about the similarities between Belichick and DeMeco, and I think that's why DeMeco and Nick Caserio get along so well. But the guys, the blue collar guys, are really well coached. So Tommy Togiai is one of the starting defensive tackles. At the beginning of the year, he was inactive on game day for the first couple games. And then because the Texans have had 4 defensive tackles go on IR, he's one of the starters now alongside Sheldon Rankins. But those are 2 guys that, Sheldon Rankins signed a one-year, $5 million deal. Tommy Togiai's, I think when they acquired him, he was on the veteran or the 4th-year player minimum or whatever it was. So $1 million a year. And the linebackers too, Aziz Elshire wasn't a marquee signing. Henry To'oTo'o was a mid-round pick. Yeah. Those guys are playing way above and beyond what I would have thought they were capable of when they first got here. So it's the sum total of all of it where they just play so well and so cohesively that you get the product you do.
Yeah, I see your Togiai and I raise you at Kairos Tonga. And also, I know for a fact Vrabel loves Al-Shahir. I think there were even conversations. I think they may have tried to get him up this way because the Patriots flipped 2/3 of the roster ultimately, but literally brought in 46 new guys. Vrabel, it's amazing how they've been able to do this, and it proves that you can go 4-13 to 14-3. It was a live-in reno. They gutted the house and somehow still lived with exposed studs and dangling wires the whole time.
That's where, I get asked a lot when people ask me about Nick Caserio. How's he operating? How is he doing compared to other people who leave New England and try to pretend that they're Bill Belichick? Caserio, I think, like Vrabel, they learn a lot. Look, you spend that much time with a guy like Bill Belichick, you're going to learn a lot. But I think both those guys also, both Caserio and Vrabel, understand that you have to be your own man. And there's certain things that work for Belichick that are going to work for you. And there's certain things that if you try to emulate Belichick, you're going to look like the biggest D-bag in the world because it's just not you. And Caserio has brought a lot of it. The roster churn is one of them. All these guys on 1- and 2-year deals that just show up and you end up getting the best out of them. But opposite of Belichick, they've taken nothing but, Power 5 conference guys in the draft since he got here. They don't take these small school experiments or guys that Belichick would fall in love with. It's completely the opposite. So which it's not that one's better than the other. It's just Caserio is being his own guy and running it the way he wants to.
A question I have, Seth, is that so the way that Houston's season started out, it's like everybody was like, okay, it's another one of these years for Houston. Is it the same kind of, I don't want to like say cult of personality, but that's kind of how it feels in the locker room with the Patriots, where honestly, you talk to those guys in the locker room and you hear a new phrase every 3 days. And every part of the team is saying it, and then Vrabel says it in a press conference.
Don't change the mac and cheese. We all we need. I know. Like, how many T-shirts are we going to print before we get to the damn AFC Championship?
It's like, okay, so for example, this week, Vrabel starts off his press conference on Wednesday talking about the demeanor of the defense in Houston and how much he respects that. And then we go and talk to 2 different wide receivers, and they're talking about the demeanor of the defense. And it's like these words that that they just clomb onto from the head coach. And I'm wondering if it's the same kind of feeling in Houston, if it ever was like that when DeMeco was newer, or how you turn around a season like that starts out the way it did.
I think so it's good. I think there's the short term and then there's the 3-year window. The 0-3 start, it was interesting because you could point to some bad plays in at least 2 of those first 3 games where CJ Gardner-Johnson was the safety opposite of Kalen Bullock. And he kind of went into business for himself, and everybody had to make up for it. And all of a sudden he's gone, And Laramie Tunsil was a guy. So that's the first 3 games of the season. If you look at these last 3 years, Texans traded away Laramie Tunsil, the left tackle from last year, and people are wondering what the hell. One of the worst pass protecting teams in football is getting rid of one of the best pass protectors in football. On the paper side of things, Tunsil makes a lot of money. It was going to have to be a complete and total overhaul of the offensive line at some point. You're going to have to spend money on 5 guys, not just 1 guy. I think there's also a feel or a possibility, at least, that there were a lot of guys that weren't just quite DeMeco Ryans types of guys, like these extreme blue collar guys that are just rabid for not just football, but like love to practice football.
See, this
want to be out there. Yeah.
This is very familiar because we went through a similar purge over the beginning of the summer, the end of the spring, where you had a bunch of captains who were either pending free agents or they were just gone.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, well, I hope he knows what he's doing.
It was, I asked DeMeco, my 10th year in the NFL was DeMeco's rookie year. So I got to see, like, from the very beginning, I was just a grumpy old vet. And I knew about 2 weeks into training camp, I was like, oh, this kid's not a bastard at all. I like this kid with DeMeco Ryans. But when he first got here, one of the terms, that get repeated and everything, every now and then we hear somebody talk about, don't be an energy vampire. Don't be an energy vampire. And then we heard it a little bit last year. Don't be an energy vampire. And I asked DeMeco about it towards the end of training camp. And I was like, we haven't really heard that term yet anymore. Are you using a different term? And he just said, we got rid of them. We don't have any of them around, so we don't, he identified the energy vampires and got them out. And it is a cult-like feeling. And personally, I'm a fan of cults when it comes to football teams. I played for the Jaguars early, back when they were in their AFC championship days. And it was one of the first teams that was just super evangelical, like crazy evangelical. And a lot of the big time star players were all very evangelical. I myself tend not to run in those circles, but I was like, cool. These guys really think God wants them to win a Super Bowl. I don't believe that, but I'll go along with it if if it works for you guys. So, so whatever it is that people glom onto to unify themselves, I'm cool with it, And I think that with DeMeco, he's gotten a whole bunch of guys that are just they are football junkies, and they are just, they're obsessed with it, and they go about their business the right kind of way. And I've been in good locker rooms and in bad locker rooms. There's on some teams, and I think this is something Vrabel knows and understands. On some teams, you start to get a culture of guys who almost feel like, I'm a vet, nah, that's not for me. I've made it. And that is a cancerous attitude to have in a locker room. And then you've got other teams where I think what D'Amico and Nick did that was really, really smart was they drafted Will Anderson, sure. But then, they had Jerry Hughes on the roster when he was here. Old vet that knew his business, did things the right way. They go out and get Danielle Hunter. They've got Danico Autry. They've got Sheldon Rankins. They've got, at any given time, they've got like 5 or more guys who are 30 years old or older in the defensive line room. And all of those guys have been really good mentors to Will Anderson, because Will is like an overeager puppy who's going to be running around 24 hours a day, no matter what. And he needs some guidance, because he will do anything anybody asks him to. And they've got the right kinds of guys in that room showing him how to work at his craft, like all the tips and pre-snap keys and all that.
That's awesome. I know you guys let Grenard go, and in comes Hunter, and he's actually even better, but brings also that veteran presence as well. It's truly like a remarkable defense, and like there's a chance that if everything goes the right way for the Texans, they may be mentioned in similar breaths to the 85 Bears and the 2000 Ravens and some of the other stupefying defenses that helped propel a team to a magical championship run. Or maybe they'll be speaking of how incredible it was that rookie coach and sophomore sensation quarterback propelled their team to greater heights that the team hadn't known since, gee whiz, all of 6 years ago. Or who knows, maybe Bo Nix and Sean Payton will be celebrating.
Well, let me can I ask you guys a question real quick?
Yeah.
I'm curious about this Corey Durden, this defensive tackle.
Another one of these. This is one of these guys that gets picked up, comes in, goes practice squad, elevated, if I'm not mistaken, Mego, in a pinch because Milton Williams is down and Kyrus Tonga gets hurt. And next thing you know, it's like, wow, this guy's making plays all over the place. Where's he been? Do you know any more about him, Mego?
I ended up, because again, I'm trying to be objective and not jump in and be one of these people that there's no part of me that thinks the Patriots are trash because they happen to win a boatload of games versus lesser football teams. But I just wanted to, I didn't watch as much Patriots this year as I would have liked to. And it's the first 10 minutes I'm watching, I'm like, who the hell is this Corey Durden? He keeps showing up. So I'm like, and I went back and I watched some more, and to me, he feels and looks so much like what I used to always think about Patriots defenses in the past was that I would watch their defensive line at the beginning of the season. One of the years that the Patriots went and visited and had joint practices with the Texans in West Virginia, I was watching that defensive line during practice that year. I'm like, I don't know about this Patriots defensive line. And then I watch them 5 or 6 weeks later, and I'm like, who the hell are these guys? Like they've gotten better. And with Corey Durden, I think that's what jumped out at me was, all right, this guy's playing a lot better than whatever his scouting report said before. And it's with technique, and he's in the right spot. He's making some really good pre-snap reads. And that's where I know that the run defense has been kind of hit or miss with the Patriots this whole season. But if you factor the injuries back into it and you get those guys back like they have, you also have to look at those young defensive linemen and say, all right, these guys are better than they were 8 weeks ago. And, again, if that's a Vrabel trait that came from a Belichick trade, whoever is responsible for it, it reminds me of those old Patriots defenses.
Yeah, I didn't know that we were going to be having the Corey Durden corner, but I do think that's something that flies a little under the radar with this coaching staff is what a brain trust they are. I know you guys have a ton of New England people down there all over the front office and the coaching staff, but you've got a lot of guys, not just Josh McDaniels, but you've got guys who have been all over the league, guys who have had experience as coordinators or in different areas of the game. Like I'm thinking particularly about like Todd Downing, who has really worked wonders with the wide receivers room. I know that's not what we're talking about in terms of the Patriots defense, but I just think from all the way down to the position coaches, that it's a really, really well-coached team. Yeah. And I think that I don't want to take anything away from the players. Like another guy, linebacker Jack Gibbons, is somebody who, again, it's like at the beginning of the season, we go, okay, what's the deal with this guy? He's going to be kind of like a backup for Spillane if they need that. And then he does a really great job holding his own when they need to go down the depth chart for him. And I do credit their just what a well-oiled machine the coaching staff is, because I think when you talk to the guys, they're so well prepared. Fundamentally, they're very sound, and they've just improved so much over the season, and that's not always the case, especially with the team that you kind of slapped together in the offseason.
Well, and I'll tell you what, too, the other part where, when I'm trying to be like objective about, one of the things I like to do too is also, all right, who are the players I need to be scared of? And I'm looking at the Patriots and I'm watching them and I'm trying to figure out if I'm scared of Booty versus this. And I don't know why I said Booty. It's because I always don't want to say Booty. I know.
Booty.
I want to say
Booty.
Booty. I just want to say Booty, and I catch myself every single time.
He
Booty.
likes it. It's
and
booty.
I'm like, all right, Diggs, I know what the threat is there and everything, but man, this team also comes up and tackles but what the sum total of it is like, all right, yeah, this is a Josh McDaniels coached offense that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Correct.
And, and like, so there's times where I feel like D'Amico said something about Drake Maye yesterday that I'm guessing some people in the New England probably thought was a slight on Drake Maye or something, just because D'Amico was saying that, he knows where to go with the ball, doesn't make mistakes, sees where where the opportunities are and everything.
Makes
and
him sound like a real game manager.
Yeah, like a game manager, right? But I mean, if you can be a game manager in your second year in the NFL, that's like pretty advanced mentally, because you got to be pretty smart to be a game manager. And obviously he's doing the physical stuff on top of it. But really it's a testament to Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator that, this is, whether it's with Brady or whatever, this is their MO and this is what they do. They're going to take a lot of guys that might not look all that individually threatening, and they find ways to get the absolute best version out of them. I think with Drake Maye, and I know you guys are probably saying the same thing. The designed runs are what really worry me the most about him versus this Texans defense. And even if it's enough, if they do enough, 3 or 4 of them, and then you add into just the fake zone reads and everything, and then a few little wrinkles on top of it. If you want to try to block Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, that's your best bet, is to introduce indecision into their decision-making process. And that's what's going to slow them down more than, it's hazardous to, if you want to chip them all the time, all right, great, you're sending 3 receivers out against that secondary, and good luck, finding an open receiver. I think at times this year, they've been able to get Will or get Danielle off balance or just a little bit off of their game with misdirection. And I know that that's something Josh is going to see, obviously. The other is that, the deep balls where the Texans have given up, they're about middle of the pack in the NFL in terms of explosive plays allowed, whereas they're top 3 in just about everything else. Most of the time that's because of blown coverages. And a lot of the time it's involving whichever safety is playing next to Kalen Bullock, because we've had 5 or 6 different guys in that role. It was supposed to be Jimmy Ward, then it was CJ Gardner-Johnson, then there were 3 or 4 other guys after that. So when they're playing their match coverage and they're sorting routes out, that's where some of the miscommunications have been. And obviously, like, Josh is going to know exactly what has given them the most trouble.
I see. I think, all right, we'll get to predictions here in a second. I'm going to ask you like a 2-pronged question as we get to the predictions. But I think honestly, with you guys playing man, it's going to be Drake's legs, Ramondre, and just having to hit the tight ends over the middle enough to maybe try to bring the defense in, and hopefully you hit that deep shot. And as far as Houston goes, with the Patriots probably playing zone or mixing and matching things a little bit, you're going to have to see if you can get your run game going, and you'll have to use Christian Kirks and the Jalen Noels and try to hit those shots, because Spillane, Christian Ellis, Gibbons, they're not exactly the fastest linebackers that the NFL or NFL Films has ever seen. All right, let's get to the predictions. And also, I've got a couple people asking me, what's your favorite prop on the weekend as well? So Seth, if we can get if you got a prop you like, maybe a Houston player you think that we should know the name of that hasn't been mentioned yet, and ultimately your prediction.
I'm going to go, what's Ramondre Stevenson's, what's his over under on rushing yardage this week?
I shall endeavor that for you.
I'm going to take the under on that. And that's no disrespect to Ramondre Stevenson, but the Texans this year, like, one of the things that's under, less notice about them is that they're a really good run defense. And usually when they face a premier running back or any running back at all, they've been able to hold those guys to less than their season averages and less than their season totals. Tommy Togiai has been a big part of that. He's just been an absolute stud run defender. So I would take the under on him.
Travion and Ramondre are both 37.5 yards.
Oh,
that's low.
It's a low number to be split amongst
really
friends.
low.
And yeah. And so now I worry about them is I worry about running backs as receivers out of the backfield. And likewise, tight ends at times. Trey McBride had the best game of his career versus the Texans a few weeks ago when they played the Cardinals. The linebackers are really good at diagnosing play action and being where they need to be, but they're not magnificent in terms of their actual coverage skills. They're really smart in coverage. But if they're having an off day, but I can't give you an over on Hunter Henry.
Nope.
but I just gave the people that information for whatever it's worth. Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Let's go with the score predictions now. First, Mego, I will give you a chance, and this one may ruffle some regional feathers.
I feel bad about this. Okay, you should know this, Seth. I'm not a Patriots fan. I'm not originally from New England.
That's good. You guys have some objectivity up there.
Yeah.
Not like this.
We dabble in it on occasion.
I hate to do this, and it's going to sound a little bizarre, but I'll explain it. I think this is going to be like a 14-10 Houston win. I think that Houston's recipe is just going to keep it low scoring and muck it up. And I just think it's untested waters for so many pieces of this team and this offense. And I am terrified of both your pass rush and what guys can do in the secondary in terms of takeaways. So I think it could be looking a lot more like the first half that the Patriots saw against the Chargers rather than the second half when it looked like kind of just a battle of attrition against Justin Herbert, looking like he just wanted to retire from football altogether. I think your defense is going to be so overwhelming.
Wow. All right. So 14-10, Mego has the upset. And the dream season comes to an end, but you know what? It will have been a success. And I don't want to hear any of that failure fool's gold talk, just in case things happen to go that way. Mr. Payne, which I'm sure you would love to bring, and synonymously did so on the field for a decade in the National Football League. How you see things?
I think, honestly, the turnover is going to get the Patriots at some point. What everything Megan said was true. I mean, the Texans' best recipe for winning this game is if they win it by scoring, if they can score 19 points. But offensively, if they don't get any help from the defense, right. I think that the Texans defense, though, is going to put them in a good position at least once in this game. And if the offense can keep the defense from getting stuck on a short field, like they did multiple times in Seattle or last week against Pittsburgh, I've got it. You know what? This morning I said 21-19. I'm going to stick with 21-19 Texans.
Wow.
Whoa, that's a nail biter, guy.
Your game's way more exciting than mine. I like that.
I do that. I think it's going to be a really tight football game. I think both of these coaches are going to be really good at addressing their own weaknesses and then trying to attack the others' weaknesses. And like I said, Vrabel and D'Amico are cut from the same cloth in a lot of ways. And they're both at times annoyingly defensive-minded coaches.
So this could very well come down to Borregales versus Fairbairn.
Oh boy!
The matchup that everyone has won. However, I just minus a guy like Nico Collins, who's like a super fast Mac Hollins, and I know the Patriots don't have him and have had to adjust to life without him for the last couple of weeks. And with the weather and the unfriendly environment, even though I know defense travels. And those guys are going to come at the Patriots like they stole something from the Texans, like they said something bad about their mama, Seth. At the same time, I feel like Josh and Drake and Vrabel will adjust and adapt over the course of the game. And it's going to be whoever gets the pick six or the scoop six or makes a special teams play. I think the Patriots snag a late lead after hanging on, and the Texans are driving, and then there's a batted pass or a pick late. So I'm going to go Patriots 20. I said the first one to reach 17 wins. I'll go Pats 20, Texans 16.
Real quick tip for you, because I know I've heard a lot of, I've seen or I've read and I've heard a lot of people in New England point out, that the Texans at times, have had trouble with running quarterbacks. It's even more specific than that. They've done an awesome job against athletic quarterbacks and running quarterbacks until in fourth quarter moments in some key games, Baker Mayfield converted a 4th and 10. Justin Herbert made it really scary in the second half with the scramble to convert. Like Trevor Lawrence made it scary in the fourth quarter on what would be their final drive. They'll do a really good job with contained pass rush. They've just had this curious hiccup where all of a sudden they lose them. And that's why Drake Maye, deciding to all of a sudden really get his exercise on the football field is annoying me a little bit. Because he looks very much like he gets it. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like I think honestly, that's why I was saying, like, with all that man coverage, like the first thing that I placed a small wager on, it was only part of my kid's 529 earlier today, was the Drake over rushing prop. Would you believe his is 34.5? So it's 3 yards under his running backs, because this, like Josh Allen, when you guys flummoxed him and beat him up on that Thursday night game, both of his tackles were out. You got 9 sacks on him. So that makes sense. 2 of the best pass rushers, 2 backup tackles. But Josh wasn't in. Oh, here comes Josh Allen. Throw it on the Superman cape one more time. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Buffalo's greatest hope. So he wasn't ready to run and have to do all the things he has to do now. Now he's going to have to do it and do it several times against Denver. Just the same way Drake's going to be like, well, I know I could probably run for 100 yards if I have to, but the season hasn't been on the line. Now it's on the line. You saw last week he had 60 yards. He had that 40-yard scramble, which was huge. It's just going to be like, it's going to be a case of just like everyone's going to have to do that extra something. And will CJ be able to make enough of those plays the same way that people think, like you said, Josh, or rather Drake, will get his exercise? That's what it's going to come down to. Man, I'm the hell with Friday. Just get me to 4:30 Saturday so I can, like, this weekend's going to be awesome.
We had a Monday night game, and it felt like on Wednesday, we were like, okay, awesome, cool. The game's almost here. We don't have to wait and everything. And now today it feels like we've been talking about this game forever.
I know.
But to bring it back to the very first thing that you guys had mentioned, I think, Megan, you made this point, was one of you two did. Both job. Good job by both of you. That for a team that's taken so much scrutiny or for their soft schedule, to have to go through all of these defenses potentially on their way to a Super Bowl, that would be pretty cool for you guys. It would be almost as cool as when the Astros won their first World Series and they had to go through the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers, in that completely and totally unblemished World Series championship.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
It was, but that part of it, for a team that had never won a World Series before, it was cool that it was the Red Sox, it was the Yankees.
In the moment.
And then it was great. And that was great. We borrowed your cheating manager, and the next year we went through you guys. And
I have zero apologies for any of those championships.
I apologize for nothing. I don't care. No.
There's the you know what I don't want to get up on this soapbox. Okay, we're cool.
Okay. Yeah, I know. And the Texans and Patriots have a sneaky good postseason rivalry, and it continues now, from divisional round games where Deion Lewis had to bail the Patriots out, to Brady and Bill O'Brien and Captain America in a football uniform, Justin James Watt, and obviously the Letterman jacket game on Monday Night Football 13 years ago. Like, there's a lot of great and all bad-ish blood between the two. And Sunday might be the baddest of them all. So, by the way, guys, I just got an email from corporate. We have officially now gone from podcast to sports radio show. So congratulations. Fitzy Mego and Payne, Thursday nights here on the socials. I actually do get a chance to talk to your co-host tomorrow at 4:30 on the WEEI afternoon show.
Oh,
and I've
good.
spoken with him before because I know he and Ted Johnson work together. He's awesome. You are awesome. Thanks for carving out some time.
Sean will talk a lot more smack than I do. You'll have fun with him.
No, man, this has been great. Seth, honestly, like, your PD said, like, oh, no, Seth's going to be a blast. It'll make an awesome pod. You were beyond that and then some. And I'm sorry we won't get a chance to do it again until maybe next season. But for now, great job. Awesome career. Awesome radio. Follow him, folks, if you want to get some, great dumb talk. Like he's
I'm really
just
dumb.
Good dumb football talk.
Incredibly dumb, yes.
At Seth C. Payne, Payne. Of course, you know where to find Mego at WEEI.com, on the air in Six Rings and Football Things, at Megan_Ottolini, and me, the original Misfit Toy. You can find me on the afternoon show or at the bottom of a pint glass at Fitzy GFY. For Seth, for Mego, for everyone at WEEI, for Sports Radio 610 in Houston, Odyssey and 2400 Sports, this has been the Six Rings and Football Things Houston Texans at New England Patriots divisional round preview and behind enemy line special. Hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend. Take care. Good luck. And hopefully we'll be talking more meaningful Patriots football next week. No offense, Seth. And
No. Teddy Three Rings. I love him, by the way. That's what we call him in Houston. Teddy Three Rings.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And as always, go Pats.